So good afternoon, everybody. As Orly said, I'm David Domingo, coming from Barcelona. I'm the head of the Innovation Hub at Mobile World Capital Barcelona Foundation. We're a public and private foundation, and it's funded by big corporations in Spain and also the public sector. And we do programs related to digital innovation for citizens, for companies, for startups. And basically, we are here with different programs. One is 5G, which we are attracting 5G products to Barcelona to create pilots. We also have come with a delegation of from the travel sector looking for travel tech startups. And finally, we have a venture builder of deep tech, which we work with universities and research centers to create startups out of them. And I used to run the Fourier for Now event, which maybe some of you know, I'm sure part of the speakers. And today, we are going to talk about marketing, but not marketing in general and real academics, so marketing very focused on the innovation ecosystem. As we are in DLD and all of you are part of this ecosystem, we think that the way that we have to market our products, our brands, our events, our services is quite different from the general market. So when we are targeting entrepreneurs, startups, investors, or corporates in that ecosystem, the usual techniques that it's common in the general market, some of them are useless, so we have to adapt them. And this is why we were focusing the panel in a quite practical way, just talking our experiences and giving some tips. So I encourage all of you to, if you have questions, just to raise your hands and ask direct questions so we can answer or we try to answer. So now I want to introduce our panelists. And I think instead of reading all the text, I will pass, well, you can take the microphone and introduce by yourself, starting from Ricardo.
Roberto.
Sorry, Roberto.
Is this working? Yes. Thank you, Carlos. Roberto St. Malo, my name. I've been active in venture capital for the past 20 years. The first 10 years of that in a traditional mode with a traditional fund structure, mostly with a Spain focused. I'm based in Madrid. And the second 10 years, active with an angel group known as Beta Angels, and pretty much doing the same thing except with a different structure. Our first investment, by the way, as Beta Angels, and of course that's another story, was in a venture here called Core Photonics, which was recently sold to Samsung. A very positive experience, I should say. And as Beta Angels, we are active essentially in Tel Aviv, Madrid, London, and the northeast of the US. And we're quite, we're generalists and essentially react to the strongest and most compelling teams that we connect with. And then we figure out or make sure that we have the right expertise to support them properly.
Okay, it's time for Ido.
All right. It's good to be here. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. My name is Ido Aharoni. I used to work for the Israeli government for 25 years, but since I retired from governmental service about 3.5 years ago, I joined the faculty of New York University, where I teach a very specific area known as non-product branding. How do you brand an idea? How do you brand a place? How do you brand something that is not tangible? In addition, I started my own consultancy, and I also do some work on the investment side, mostly in Israeli technology companies.
And time for Uri.
Hi. Hi, thank you for having me here. I'm Uri Admon from Captain App. I'm a founder and CEO of Captain App. It's an online loyalty platform, data platform that manages user behavior. We work with various enterprises, fintech, airline, gaming, to increase user lifetime and to reward the desired behavior. I teach at Tel Aviv University, MBA program to build digital products. And I'm part of GameE's board, Israeli Game Development Association, working with the Israeli gaming industry.
Great, thank you for the introductions. And starting with the debate and the topics that we prepared a bit in advance. One is we will tackle some of the areas of marketing. And as I mentioned before, I think it can be useful for not only for the startups, also for the corporates who wants to join the ecosystem and participate, also for investors. So probably the first question is maybe for Yuri as an entrepreneur who founded a startup and now is growing and growing. Which are the most appropriate channels at the moment to market your product or your service into the ecosystem? It's still all digital, still some physical. What is when you are building your database and your CRM to approach clients? What is your strategy in terms of channels?
So naturally, there are many ways to go about it, but I'll share from our experience. We are approaching with a lean startup approach. So we are working on results-driven activity, not too much spending, really being focused on results. And in that respect, we really care on where we put our budget and really care how we can reach the market. And as I said, we are working with enterprises. And to really reach enterprises, to listen to your message, it's a huge task that can be very costly. There are many ways to go about it. In channels, we really believe in B2B and in strategic partnerships. And I think a company just starting that have a real solution, that really the goal is to reach a customer and sit in front of the customer, a strategic partner can take you a really long way. We are strategic partners with Microsoft. We are strategic partners with Playtech, just as an example, these two huge companies. And if I look at our relationship with Microsoft, through this channel building, through this partnership, many opportunities are open to us. One, in terms of direct relationship, naturally opening the door, making the introduction. I'm talking about global introductions. And second, of course, it's also a matter of reference and reputation. Because once you get a strategic partner supporting your brand, investing the time in your branding, doing the right introduction, coming with you to the meeting, it makes the whole difference. And I think when starting, I would recommend to look for the right strategic partner and invest your energy and money on that rather than just shooting everywhere and trying to get the attention. Again, I'm talking about selling to big enterprises. I would rather get to a big enterprise with the right big strategic partner than just grab somebody that I don't know and through a random interaction.
Put your effort on the partnerships, no? Identify which are your ideal partners and collaborate with them to arrive to the final customer.
It's a good, the practical answer I would say that whoever is willing to be your partner when you are small, first of all, you give him a lot of respect. Because when you are starting a business, you are building your own software, and you think you have this crazy, stupid idea that other people in the world would want to use this software, if anybody bigger than you is willing to listen, I would go and talk to this person, okay? And then, of course, I would like to focus on areas where my strategic partner is already a king. I would try to partner with a king or a queen. I would rather do that. And, but at the beginning, no royalty cares about you at all, of course. So I would just start to find partners that care about the product really, and then try to find, it's all about people after all. Try to find the right connection, etc., and see if this partner really has leanway in the vertical where I want to go. If they really have investments there, if they have partners there, and if they care for the area.
Okay, yeah, good answer. And then moving to another area of the marketing about PR and media, I just now want to to focus on the how the people in the ecosystem stay up to date about all the news, new investment, new partners, new startups coming out, because it's always about collaboration in the market, so you don't have to see what's going on all the time on the ecosystem to try to find partners, clients, customers, investors, whatever. So maybe a question to you is, how do you stay today? You are looking, you are subscribed to newsletter, you are following influencers, you read newspapers, world newspapers, specific media about startups and ecosystem. You only trust on some of the people that sending you information. I mean, how do you stay up to date here? Because then the strategic for the people who want to market the products disappear on these places.
I take it you're asking me about that, or?
Yeah, you.
Yep.
Well, you,
Yep.
or you can contribute.
Yeah. In our case, it's actually quite simple and quite organic. We stay up to date by staying up to date with the teams we're working with, really understanding what they're up to and seeing the dynamics, the challenges. just constant learning in that sense. And then secondly, something that is different in our case is we have about 40 members in our group based on both sides of the Atlantic, in different areas of activity. I would say they're all fairly veteran, accomplished entrepreneurs, very successful company builders, very, who've done a good job as finance professionals, as investors. So this is where we get our deal flow. We hardly ever react or get cold calls, and it makes our deal processing and staying on top of the market easier, because these tend to be very interesting introductions, already de facto, screened before they reach us. And I contrast this to what happens when you are a formal fund that has to be in investment mode at certain times and has to be receptive to lots of business plans that go their way. So a lot of the staying on top of trends, learning about things, comes simply because of the deal flow we're receiving from within our 40 members. And the other point I would say is that if you're active as an investor, one indispensable ingredient is just lots of curiosity and need, desire, readiness to explore and learn about new things. So that one is a difficult one to put down as a formula. But there's just constant exploration, and I think that, to me, it's what makes this activity so much fun.
Okay, before we were talking about also the noise on media, because there's a lot of noise, and then how you select like the good news, the good information from all the news and media and newspaper, newsletters, about all this noise. How do you filter? I mean, it's all for all of you, It's basically on people you trust, or just I just follow 2 newsletters and the rest I cannot read them. I mean, how do you filter about all the noise that appear on the news?
Well, I think that, there's a famous story about, I think it's Israel's second Prime Minister, Moshe Sharet. They used to write notes for himself on his speeches before he gave them, and he often used to mark for himself, weak argument, raise your voice. And I think that this is what many marketers do. A lot of noise to overcome and overcompensate for the weakness of the product. And that stems from a very common mistake that you see in the world of marketing. Where marketing is aspirational, it doesn't work. It's a very important lesson that I learned in working with hundreds of companies throughout my life. It just doesn't work. You can't say, I am, right now, what I would like to be in the future. It just doesn't work. And many people, especially people that have this entrepreneurial zeal, people that are very passionate about their ideas, it's a very common mistake. I teach my students about the 5 essential steps of building a plan, any plan, including a marketing plan. It's called R-SWIM. R stands for research, S stands for strategy, W stands for work plan, I stands for implementation, and M stands for measurement, measuring your effectiveness. Now, people that have a strong entrepreneurial drive usually come up with an idea, conceive a solution, and then jump right to the I. Jump right to the implementation. And so the marketing becomes aspirational in the sense it's not well rooted in the realities of the enterprise. And usually they spend a lot of money, a lot of efforts. Let me give you an example. I worked with a company that mistakenly assumed that their product is going to be a mass market product rather than a niche product. As a result, they came up with a marketing plan for a major consumer product rather than realizing that the product at best is going to serve a small niche of the market. So aspirational marketing is a big danger for entrepreneurs all over the world.
Great. And yeah, don't leave the microphone because the next question was for you as well. I think you are the right person to answer. The corporates who wants to enter into the ecosystem, here in Tel Aviv, in Israel, a lot of big multinationals comes to open here innovation center, looking for startups, collaborate with them, partner with them. But there is a lot of competition. And then how make your brand, I mean, if you are Microsoft, Intel, Google, how make your brand appealing for startups and for talent to work instead of going to a startup or to another center? Because branding in this case for final customer, it's quite different from doing marketing of your brand for the startups.
Right, so I think we can learn a lot from what is happening in the world of music. There are two very interesting happening in the world of music that we should learn from in the world of technology. The first is the creative people, the talent, as we say, they would like to engage in direct relationship with their consumers. They don't want intermediaries. So you see Taylor Swift, Adele, they're releasing their albums directly on their own platforms. They want to have our email, they want to have our phone number because they want to have a direct relationship with us. That's the first thing that is happening. Direct engagement, direct affiliation. The second thing that is happening, and it's contrary to the common wisdom. People say, well, we live in the digital world, we have Spotify, Pandora, and all that. Who needs to go to live events? Well, guess what? The number of live events, music events, has gone up dramatically since the introduction of all those platforms. And especially small, intimate musical events, like clubs. Even here in Israel, you see it all over the country. Huge growth in this industry. What does it mean? It tells us that experiential marketing is the way to go. So you have two new elements introduced to the design of marketing campaigns. First is the realization that you as the marketer would like to have a direct relationship with the consumer with no intermediaries. And the second thing is introduce experiential formats. Right? You see in Israel, for example, there's a tremendous growth of this thing called escape rooms. What is escape room? It's an experience. It's simply an experience, and people crave for physical experiences in a digital world. And big brands and small brands should be able to give it to them.
Good. You mentioned several words that I like a lot, which is engagement, and now maybe communities, and now with escape room, some kind of games or gamifications. And I think another area of the marketing, which is about creating a community. I guess most of the companies who want to participate in the ecosystems want to participate in the community, in the sectorial community of the company, or create a community around the company. So because it has a lot of benefits for marketing your products and your services. And I think Uri can answer or can talk about this community engagement related with gamification. How you can create a community, how you can engage with a community when you are a startup or when you are a bigger company.
So, you know, when I agree with you, we're working with a community and we all the time want to be part of various communities. First of all, as a company, there's the developers community. Naturally, in our fields, you want to be involved in this community. Then there's the ecosystem of your customers. There's the ecosystem of your partners. And I think starting, let's say the first step about this is to ask yourself how you can contribute, how you can help the community, how you can maybe offer something to the community, and start in a way that you can really contribute, not in a way that you are contributing in order to get something back immediately. Of course, I did not invent this. Karma and everything exists way before me, but I really think it works when you're looking about community. So contributing to a community means maybe posting a nice blog on Dev or on Medium or wherever you choose, if you have a good experience. If you have experienced upgrading RabbitMQ and you had some really terrible experience there and you learned something that you can share with the community, it's good. If you can contribute your space to a meetup of the community. I work a lot with the game developers community in Israel, and we are all the time working with various volunteers. There's a meetup, you're a big company, maybe you can contribute your space. Maybe you can contribute some knowledge. Maybe you can talk in a meetup. Maybe you can give some money to a good cause, not to put your banner somewhere, not to put your logo somewhere, but maybe you can really give, if you have this money, if you are making this money, contribute to the community in that respect. And I think that it starts, in a big approach, thinking local also, thinking about the resources you are using, thinking how you can bring back to this community. And slowly, your brand will catch. It will give you value for sure, but it's tricky because I think to really get it right, you should really do it not aiming to get anything back out of it, but really understanding that you can contribute to your community. Now, as a startup, we are part of the developers community, we are part of the high-tech community, but we are very much also part of the low-tech community where we live, the pollution, how green everything, and everything. And then it comes with you in your approach. And I think in our industry, when we're talking about innovation ecosystem, etc., bullshit is really transparent very, very fast. And when you are trying to play and to wash yourself as contributing when you are not, it will backfire immediately. So it's just about be honest and understand that you are a part of the community. Everybody understands this at some point of their life, naturally. But the sooner you understand it and you really come to contribute, I think you will get a lot of value back. So that's my approach on this.
Yeah, I think I agree, and you probably agree, that it's not long-term investment. I mean, the return is not immediate, as you mentioned. It's more a long-term return. Then we were talking about startups, how can they market the product, also with corporates, and maybe now we could talk about the investors. That's more closer to Roberto. You think that now that maybe talent is scarce, and then some of the investors and the VCs are fighting somehow to invest in and to get the best startups. Do they have to do marketing as well to have a good image on the ecosystem so the best startup will approach them? So maybe doing the opposite as before, where all the startups were knocking the door of the investors and the investors can filter. Now I think there is a trend that it can be more balanced between also investors looking for startups. I mean, marketing and having a good brand on the ecosystem so the startups can apply to them. So what do you think? Investors should also do marketing, or they just stay looking behind the door?
My general sense, certainly in the case of Spain, is that yes, a lot of effort is required on the investor side, and I believe it's similar here as well, where the scarce resources, great talent, are great teams. Now, yes, there's a lot of evidence to visibility being correlated with ability to attract capital as an entrepreneur, as a fund manager. That's a reality, and I guess Elon Musk sort of made that very clear when he went from no visibility to suddenly amazing visibility and raising all the capital in the world, so to speak. That said, in our case, I have to say we're not a good example because we do zero marketing. It's all word of mouth. It's all the teams we're working with. It's all within our members in our investment group. This is literally the only marketing we do. And I think just to underscore the point a little bit, nothing, especially in the early going, nothing replaces really having delighted customers, fantastic word of mouth, really striving to make sure your customers are delighted with what you're doing for them. Nothing replaces being very clear about your value proposition, having it well encapsulated, having a clear roadmap as to where you're going, and being very self-critical about where the gaps are. The person most likely to trick us is ourselves, and I think many of us have been there. I certainly have, where we like a story that we tell ourselves and we end up believing it too much. The other thought is that when you're coming down to branding and marketing, in the early, I'm thinking of this, particularly of this entrepreneur who is doing his second medical device venture in the Boston area that fortunately we're working with. And he is looking to disrupt a large medical device space, going up against two of the largest medical device players in the world as a tiny startup. And darn it, he is just focused on getting a few dozen surgeons that are in love with his product. He makes a superhuman effort to be in all the surgeries personally and hear, what they're saying. He's put together.
David, you have 5 minutes.
Sorry. Yep. He's put together an incredible engineering team, still, very much under the radar. And his reputation for good engineering is getting around. And, let's hope, knock on wood, it's looking okay so far on this one. But having clarity on your core competences in this case has spilled over in the nice sense that this team has developed a strong reputation for its engineering skills, its product creation skills. And something that is also happening in this medical device space is robotics are coming in. And these are huge efforts. Obviously, we know about Intuitive and Da Vinci. They're sort of alone in the market, but for instance, there's another company called Auris that raised $700 million before being acquired by J&J for $5.5 billion. And, by nice accident, quote unquote accident, Auris got in touch with this venture about Lexington making parts for the robots, just based on having clarity of a clear position and a good reputation for engineering. And, let's see where it goes. But at this point, it's looking like it may be a second major business line for this venture. So to try to summarize is, clarity on who you are and what your competences are and where they might apply.
Okay. So as we are running out of time, I have a last question for basically Ido. I think one of the areas that we haven't tackled until now is the ambassadors or the influencers. No? Now with social media and Instagram, the influencers is quite common, quite usual. But I think the connectors and the organic leaders of a community, it always existed. And you've been ambassador of Israel worldwide. Can I also explain how important is an ambassador or a connector who can explain your service, your product, your country, wherever to a lot of people around? And I think for all the actors of our ecosystem, it's good to connect and to explain to this connector ambassador so they can influence other people around.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And brand, no matter how big they are, they need multipliers. They need champions, they need ambassadors, and those people or institutions should represent as genuinely as possible the values, the main proposition of the brand, and really be the embodiment of the brand, right? So just as the late Mayor Ed Koch was the champion of New York, and just as Shimon Peres was the champion of Israel, and just as Yossi Vardi, the person who established DLD, is a champion of Israeli high-tech, you want your champion, your brand champion, to have that level of correlation between what they represent and your value proposition. Now, both my co-panelists spoke about something very important. Uri spoke about purpose-driven marketing, and Roberto spoke about how important it is to maintain the high quality of the product. No matter how you're going to market it, you have to have a good product. And I would like to add to that both of them said something very profound. We entered a new phase in the evolution of human communications known as participatory culture. We can no longer view our target audience as passive consumers. They're all participants, and we should all get used to the idea of looking at them as participants, which means that the marketing cannot just go one way. It's never unilateral. So you need the ambassadors of your brand, whether it's a real ambassador, meaning a diplomat, or a brand ambassador or brand champion, not just to look at the new medium as a continuation, as an extension of television, like many politicians do, right? They're tweeting their message and that's it. They don't really want to engage in a conversation with us. They post their video on Facebook and that's it. They see the internet as a natural evolution of television, which is not. The internet is a participatory medium. Television is not. And so therefore your brand champion has to be willing to engage in a real interaction with the consumer.
Thank you.
Otherwise, the marketing's not going to work. And I think Orly wants me to shut up.
No, I never wanted to shut up. But you have a couple here that will actually take you to the air. So thank you, David.
Yeah, time is over. So thanks to our panelists for being here. I think we are